One could say, in an esoteric sense, I've been preparing to do this movie my whole life. I met Bobby Kennedy in '67, shook his hand. I was 5 years old. Of course, I have no memory of it. The following year, I remember waking my father up, telling him the news that he'd been shot. I understood the gravitas of it even at 6. And then in the year 2000, I was given the grand tour at the Ambassador. Someone had said, well, there were 77 people in the pantry that night when he was shot. I started to imagine, who were those other people? What's happened to them? How were their lives changed? Of course, they were changed. We were all changed. But how were they specifically affected by this moment? And started to create this piece. And in many ways, the movie wrote itself. The movie came together in ways that I could never have imagined.
In the film, I played the sous chef at the Ambassador Hotel, the #2 man in the kitchen. And in the pantry somewhere, someone had written some graffiti
that said that once and future king.
So I had to invent a character who was worldly enough, wise enough, to write something like that on the wall. Who is it? It's gotta be Lawrence Fishburne. Didn't know? It's gotta be. I wrote that role for him.
He was a young man once like you. You, Jose, are a young king.
My character is actually one of the only non-fictional characters in the film. And when Robert was exiting the ballroom where he spoke, he shook my character's hand, and at that moment is when he was shot. So that's why in the very famous photo, the busboy's holding his head.
The scenes between Tony Hopkins and Harry Belafonte, I mean, the crew would stand behind the camera and just hold their breaths while these two legends go at it.
At least I don't have to get up 3 times a night to go have a pee.
Well, at least I get out of bed to have one. Checkmate. It was really fascinating working. Well, what an extraordinary man he is. I mean, he is such a revolutionary force. And he was close to Bobby Kennedy. To touch him is a part of touching a little bit of modern American history.
I got a call. Hello, Harry. This is Tony Hopkins. I said, who is Anthony Hopkins? I'm an actor. And I said, oh, really? He says, I want very much to play with you. It'd be wonderful for us to have this little journey together. And I said, oh, that was the last bit of seductive bait put on the tail. I said, okay, I yield. You got me, I'm coming. I'd like to die knowing that I've beaten you just once. That's all I pray for, Lord.
Keep praying. Hey, Paul.
Gentlemen?
Would you like to replace an elderly gentleman while he goes off to take his afternoon nap?
Tony Hopkins runs up to me and says, I can't believe I'm working with Bill Macy. And I said, oh, yeah, it's great. I'm trying to, blow it off, and moments later, Bill Macy runs up to me. I can't believe I'm working with Tony Hopkins. And I said, come on, he just put you up. He says, no.
There's a hook and ladder keeping me from my first cup of coffee in the crossroads.
Don't you have a home, John?
Oh, this is my home, you know that.
Retirement doesn't suit you, does it?
In 1968, the civil rights movement was just starting to catch fire.
Daryl.
And this is a little snapshot of that issue.
I'm getting complaints that you're not allowing the kitchen staff off work to vote today.
Christian and I had acted together before, and he's always great fun. And our scenes I felt great about because we just nailed them first time in.
We already received a call about stolen voting machines down in precinct 180.
I'm not familiar with that area.
It's a black neighborhood.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I guess Bussin doesn't really agree with you fellas, huh?
When doing research on my character and discussing with Emilio where, my character actually came from, he told me that he was going through photos and articles of the day, and he came across a photo of a young man throwing a chair into a water fountain.
And no one knew who he was or where he came from or what all this was about, but that story lived in Emilio's memory, and he began writing this screenplay based on that character.
He was like, I wonder what that kid was going through. I wonder what, what got him to that point.
He wanted to know, who was this young man, and what happened, and what made him reach that point of rage.
This was his hope leaving, you know what I mean? He believed in the dream. He believed things can change through, politics instead of, trying to fight the system.
There's a police checkpoint outside of a polling place in Watts. The system's not working for us. Again.
And I kind of took that and used that as definite like inspiration to go forward.
Hey.
William.
I love the character of William and Diane, these two young people who are essentially getting married so that William can avoid the draft, which was not uncommon at that time.
You know it's bad luck.
What is?
Well, for the groom to see the bride in her dress before the wedding.
Interestingly enough, the character of Diane was actually inspired by a woman that Emilio met, who he later found out through conversation with her had actually been at the Ambassador on the day that Robert Kennedy was shot.
I don't know your birthday.
August 3rd.
I don't know a lot about you, Diane.
I got writer's block for 1 year, and my brother came over one day and he says, get out of town. Pack everything up and split and find some place and write. The next morning I went north, found a place, went to the registration desk, and there was a woman there in her mid-50s, and she says, what the hell are you doing in Pismo Beach? And I said, well, I'm writing a movie. And she says, well, can you tell me anything about it, or is it some big secret? And I said, no, it's about the day Bobby Kennedy was shot. And she almost fell over. She says, my God, I was there. Her name was Diane. She had been canvassing for Bobby Kennedy, going from door to door. She was in the ballroom when the shots rang out, and she said, what can I do to honor Bobby? And she ended up marrying 2 boys to keep them from going to Vietnam. And the character of Diane was born, and I cracked the spine in the story, and it gave it a beating heart, and everything sort of branched off from that. And it was, writer's block was over, truly.
Love or money?
Pardon me?
The reason you're getting married. Love or money?
I'm saving a life. You know, she's standing for what she believes in, at a time when it was not appropriate for women to do that. And I really respect Diane for that, as a character and her as the person.
Jack,
What?
do you think I'm more Jackie or more Ethel?
I play a fellow from New York named Jack. Helen Hunt plays Samantha. Jack and Samantha are on their second honeymoon, their 10th anniversary.
Can't keep track.
Of what?
I can't keep track of you.
I'm right here.
You are now.
Sharon and Demi, these 2 titans, you know, going at it, that was breathtaking.
Well, it's such a terrific opportunity, this part that I play, because the beauty shop is a lot like the therapist, where everybody goes and hangs out and tells all their secrets and talks to each other. And so when Demi's character comes in, you know, my job is to make sure that she's okay.
You know, I'm getting older, and people don't care about you as much when you get older.
In the scene, I am at a point of a high level of intoxication. On top of it, I'm an extremely theatrical personality. She is obviously somebody who's in tremendous pain, and yet at the same time has zero awareness of anybody else but herself.
Look at you. You look terrific.
Yeah.
No one knows that my character is also going through heartache or heartbreak or the things that are happening in her life. And so it's a very odd dynamic that's going on. I never could sing. Couldn't carry a tune. Not even a Christmas carol.
That's fantastic.
I believe that you're truly only as good as the people you surround yourself with, whether it's behind or in front of the camera. And in front of the camera, we had a plethora of talent. These are people who normally say no, and they said yes to this. I think it spoke to something that they wanted to participate in.
Every day, it's like going to a Screen Actors Guild meeting to find out who else is now on this film. And we've got a cast from heaven.
It became a director's dream. I had this amazing team, and I could go to any one of them and hand the ball off to whomever, and they were going to score. And behind the camera, we got Michael Barrett, great, brave, young DP. Julie Weiss, who's been nominated 3 times. brilliant costume designer.
Julie was incredible. She had such a great eye, and it was so much fun for me to try on all the clothes and do the big hair and the big lashes and put the whole look together, and I really felt like I was part of that era when the day was done.
When she was dressing them, she'd say, "What's in your pocket? Why are you here at the hotel?" To every single one of them. It drove them off bananas, but they were invested, and I think it shows in the picture. And we had Patty Podesta, who did Memento, as our production designer.
The production designer in any film is responsible for the visual look of the film. And in this movie, the world we wanted to inhabit sort of starts at the end of the movie, where Bobby Kennedy is assassinated, and that most of us have an image of that via the media, and works backwards to produce a kind of image of the period that is both part a dream, a memory, and the actual way that the period looked.
I surrounded myself with extraordinary people who supported me throughout, and I leaned on them.
That was great.
I didn't realize how deeply Bobby Kennedy affected him, nor how much he was affected by Bobby's death. But this spirit lived within him, and he always wanted to address this man's spirit. And that's what this film really is. He wanted to reawaken that echo for his children and the generation that has grown up without a Bobby Kennedy, without that kind of leadership.
Emilio's writing in the piece is incredible. He deals with all the issues of the day in really personal and specific ways, in terms of the way that characters connect to each other and the things that bring them into conflict, the things that they have in common, the hopes and the dreams that people have that they've actually hung on Robert Kennedy. So there's a very thick kind of tapestry that he has woven in his script.
White folks ain't trying to keep you down, Miguel. White folks just don't like to be pushed into a corner. Can you dig it?
I really think people are going to be blown away by Emilio. This was finally his chance to really get to show what he could do.
He's an incredibly generous director. I mean, he's not precious about his own words. He has an ability to give you room as an actor to be creative and yet hold the strength of his vision.
I've been trying to get this movie made for the last 5 years, and always knowing that we would have the hotel at our disposal. And because God has a sense of humor, our financing came together when it was announced that the Ambassador Hotel was no longer going to allow filming. They were going to raise the building and turn it into a high school. And in the spirit of RFK, that makes absolute sense. And they literally started to auction off the contents of the hotel, and chandeliers and chairs and tables, and we went to the auction and bought what we could.
We got all of the leather sofas, a lot of tables, a lot of chairs, the white leather sofas that you see in the palm room scene, and that we also see in the antechamber to the ballroom, or the furniture that actually existed in the Ambassador. The elevator hardware is really from the Ambassador, and so having those items from the hotel, I think, really helped a lot.
When the production was set to go, Emilio called the Ambassador and said, "I know you're going to tear it down this week. Will you give me 1 week just to film some exteriors and some of the hallway corridors and the coffee shop for a few scenes?" And they said yes. So the last activity on the premises of the Ambassador Hotel was the filming of this production of Bobby.
The irony of Bobby being the last picture shot at the Ambassador was certainly not lost on me, and I don't think it was lost on any of the cast or crew either. It was emotional being there.
I think about 36 hours after we finished shooting there, they began to pull it down. So
1968 was a revolutionary time in the United States. There were race riots. Martin Luther King was killed. The problems of poverty. Vietnam War was spinning out of control. Bobby Kennedy had spent his whole life behind the scenes, backstage, so he had a very difficult time deciding whether to run for president.
But Bobby realized that he had to speak up. He had to make a move. And when he jumped in the race, it was apparent that he was the odds-on favorite.
A wide lead. And I think people sensed that politics could matter, because he seemed like sort of a non-politician. He seemed real, he seemed true. Bobby Kennedy's family was sort of a unique American institution. He grew up as the runt of the family. His father called him that, the runt. His older siblings were good-looking and strong and handsome and athletic and academic, and Bobby was none of those things. Family meant everything to Bobby Kennedy. Bobby and Ethel got married and had 11 kids. Surprisingly, he was a very good father. He found his role, his meaning in life as a kind of family protector. When Jack Kennedy ran for president, he needed somebody like Bobby to do all the hard jobs. He gave every bit of his energy and soul to his brother's campaign.
After the assassination of his brother, he was a totally different man.
He was absolutely distraught, but it also led to a new level of spiritual search and spiritual belief. He became a remarkable candidate.
I am announcing today my candidacy for the presidency of the United States. I do not run for the presidency merely to oppose any man, but to propose new policies.
He was a young man who could bridge the gap between both black and white, young and old, haves and have-nots.
He began to touch people who were on the margins, people who no one paid any attention to, and really, really make a difference in their lives and really inspire others to get involved.
Bobby had a unique human way of reaching out to these people. Maybe because he'd been this little forgotten boy himself, he was able to reach out and touch people.
He soon became a great champion for the civil rights movement, and we saw in him great hope.
What I think is quite clear is that we can work together in the last analysis, and that what has been going on within the United States over the period of the last 3 years, the divisions, the violence, the disenchantment with our society, the divisions, whether it's between blacks and whites, between the poor and the more affluent, or between age groups, or in the war in Vietnam, that we can start to work together. We are a great country, a selfless country, and a compassionate country. And I intend to make that my basis for running in over the period of time.
And boy, could he give a speech. And it's shocking how unadorned they are, how he just says what is.
It never felt rehearsed or false. It really felt like he was speaking to the people, and I think that's because he was.
When you look at some of the footage during that campaign of his being dragged out of the car with adulation. One point over in Jersey, he was pulled down and banged his tooth on the pavement. I mean, they put their hands on his hair and they pull him forward. They just wanted to touch him. He represented such hope.
My thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there.
When Bobby Kennedy finished his victory address, he was hustled off the stage by his protector. Ethel was separated briefly from him, and an angry Palestinian named Saran decided that Bobby was too supportive of Israel and got himself a small, cheap pistol. And after Bobby was coming through this pantryway, and Saran stepped out and shot him in the head with his pistol.
That assassination reached into the heart of the nation and ripped out its heart.
What happened was, I think, the series of assassinations destroyed the fabric of this country's belief in itself.
Someone described it as the rug being pulled out from underneath an entire generation. And that's what it felt like.
But it's important to remember, you may stop the man, but you will never stop the vision.
When Emilio and I first discussed the structure of the score, we decided that it had to be multi-layered. You have a film that is ultimately expressing the lost hope and dream that America had at that point in history, with the idea that that dream can be reborn. I personally think that's what Emilio is trying to give us at the end. That's at least what I come away with from the film. So the music had to be able to not only embrace the largesse of the idea of what Bobby represented for America and perhaps the world, but at the same time, you have these very ordinary people who are living small but extraordinary lives.
Drysdale's Night.
So one of the greatest challenges that I continue to take on as a composer is to how to write, let's say, under Lawrence Fishburne's beautiful speech about the chivalrous act.
You, Jose, are a young king. Kind, caring, humble.
It's so beautifully delivered that you have to stay out of his way, and yet you want to give him every possible support you possibly can. And yet when you take that music out, you want it to feel like it can stand on its own 2 feet and not just be perceived as a backing track.
Chivalrous act. Chivalrous act indeed.
It was obvious to me from the beginning, this had to be an acoustic, organic score. It could not be electronic, it could not be quirky, it could not be overly highly stylized. It had to be more global. It had to be emotionally presented with open arms. You know, it had to be the tinge of the epic to this, you know, because there's epic ideas that are live on from this man. That was the first big choice, you know. It's orchestral. Let's just go find the money. So we found the money, and we did an orchestral score. I'm a trumpet player. I think the trumpet is a beautiful instrument. I think it also has a inherent heroic quality. I think I was attracted at several levels. I remember this event. I remember what it did to me emotionally in terms of my feeling about American politics. And then, of course, for a composer, it's hard to find projects that really are going to challenge you and make you do something better than you've ever done before. And what a great opportunity for a composer, any artist, especially the movies that perhaps don't pay as well. You're doing it for other reasons. You're doing it to be part of a community of artists who are saying something of value, saying something that will go out and perhaps make a small difference in our world. And this movie has all of that. This movie really has that potential to say, look, here's a message that got trampled on, but it's alive in all of us every day. And for one brief moment in the theater, if we can reinforce that message for people, the world can be a better place.
The song really began with Harvey Weinstein coming up with this idea that the end of the movie needed a bit of an anthem. It needed something that was uplifting because the movie is a passion play in many ways. And he felt that it might help inspire people. It's a song called Never Gonna Break My Faith.
They brought on Aretha Franklin to sing the song. From there, it turned into a duet with Mary J. Blige and Aretha. Then we brought in the Harlem Boys Choir. Yeah. So it's a big event record.
Bryan Adams wrote the song.
Bryan Adams is an amazing songwriter. He wrote the song specifically for the movie.
But nowhere can I find.
The film is quite tragic at the end. So how do you write a song that's going to reflect the feeling that everyone's going to have walking out of the cinema? It occurred to me the best thing to do was write something that was like a prayer.
Truth and liberty, a mind to live. Feel a crown from a king breaking. Angels ring, but you're never gonna break. You're never gonna break my faith.
That's how it goes.
The lyrics are stunning. I've never heard such a lyric, lately, a lyric so deep and so heavy and so terrifically meaningful.
When someone takes the life of an innocent man, well, they've never really won, because all they've really done is set the soul free where it's supposed to be. I think that's probably my favorite lyric in the song.
Yeah, listen, you're awesome.
I couldn't believe when I heard Aretha singing it. It was everything I could possibly have imagined.
It was like having musical royalty in the studio. She goes in the booth and you're not telling her what to do.
you're pretty much listening.
Okay, that's the one. That's nice.
It's a huge honor. I don't care how many times you do a song with Aretha Franklin. She is the reason why we all have a job today in the music business.
And then Mary, she is the queen of hip hop, though. She's the closest artist to Aretha that we have, you know, the younger community. You know, she gets in and knocks it out.
For those we lose before their time, I pray their souls will find the light. I know that the day will surely come when His will will be done. Yes, it
This song is really important to the film because people had put so much faith into Bobby, and the song is basically saying, I'm gonna move forward, I'm gonna keep going no matter what. We're not gonna let Bobby die in vain.
You're never gonna break my faith.
I think a movie like this can actually, hopefully, open people's minds.
I think overall the message really is about love. Love thy neighbor as thyself.
Our lives on this planet are too short. The work to be done is too great. But we can perhaps remember that those who live with us are our brothers, that they share with us the same short moment of life.
For those we lose before their time.
It's America. It's American history at its best. And that people need to be in touch with that part of the fabric of their existence. They need to get into looking once again into the heart and soul of what this nation is really about and see that essential good is in their midst. And I think this picture helps reveal that.